Your boy Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you 2 flights up from the kitchen. I grabbed some coffee in my coffee cup from the Inn, the Interfaith Nutritional Network. Shout out to the Inn, shout out to Gene Kelly, shout out to everybody at the Interfaith Nutritional Network. Cheers, salute. I'll take a sip. I was just saying to my guest today, Theresa Roden, when you're the nonprofit sector connector, when you host a show called Philanthropy and Phocus, people give you a lot of swag, man. I've decided I'm going to wear t-shirts, and I'm going to wear all these t-shirts, and I'm going to do a whole campaign about maybe T-shirt Tuesday on my social media, and it'll be just me rocking a different t-shirt, or as the weather starts to cool off, a hoodie from my friends in the nonprofit sector. It's not required that I get gear, but I do like when I get gear. So I always appreciate that. So we'll get into what that's all about, Philanthropy and Phocus. Let's do it, Tommy D. What is it? This is a mission. This is my journey. This is my mission to accomplish 2 things, or at least begin to accomplish 2 things on a Friday morning. Help nonprofit organizations tell their story and amplify their message. And I do that by bringing on leaders of nonprofit organizations. Why nonprofits, Tommy D? Well, that's funny. You should ask. Let me help you with that one. Because nonprofits change our world each and every day. Each and every day they make impact. Each and every day they help people who are food insecure, are experiencing homeless, have health issues, don't have the empowerment they need, don't have the guidance they need. If it's not for the nonprofits and the nonprofit sector and the leaders and their teams, well, the work doesn't get done. And my job is it's pretty easy what I do. I just want to get out there and help them tell stories. And that's what this show is all about. We're into somewhere in the 130s as far as episodes go. I don't know. It's around that number. That's important. But the thing is, I'm just scratching the surface, man. I'm going to do 10,000 episodes of this show. So, and we have other stuff we're going to do. We're going to go on tour, and we're going to have a whole nother show that I created in my mind where I just run around with nonprofits. We'll talk about it. I don't want to confuse you all right now. Right now, the mission this morning is to have a conversation with Theresa from I Try, and we're going to do that just shortly. Here's a couple things I got to just shout out. Shout out to the Imagine Awards. The New York City Imagine Award event is coming up in just about 6 weeks, so check that out, New York City Imagine Awards. I've been on the committee, my buddy, and really a guy I look to for a lot of guidance, my friend Ken Serini, the founder of the Imagine Awards, managing partner at Serini & Associates out here in Long Island. And before you know it, I'm going to be talking to you about the applications for the Long Island Imagine Awards, which is funny because we just did that event in April. But this is the cycle. This is how it goes. The applications come in, we review, et cetera, et cetera. Let's pause that. Triathlon. Got to be honest with you. Scary word. I Googled it a bunch of times this morning. I have the Wikipedia page open. Look, I'm in I say the best shape of my life. And I only say that because I've never really been in good shape. So to say that is just relatively speaking, I'm in the best shape of my life. However, I want to know from Theresa this morning, aside from what the empowerment and the special work this organization is doing, I'm looking at a picture here. It is running, it is biking, it is swimming. There's only one part of that trio that really scares me because I feel like the other stuff you can kind of take at your own pace. But swimming at your own pace creates some issues if you don't keep your head and your breathing apparatus above the waterline. So that's the one that sort of concerns me. But we're going to talk about that. Am I saying I'm going to do a triathlon? By no means am I saying that at 10:04 on a Friday morning. I don't know what will happen 50 minutes from now, so I don't know what Theresa might convince me to try and do as the nonprofit sector connector. We'll see. We'll see. I'm sure there's a lot of training that we'd have to take into consideration. Theresa, we talked about it right before the show, creating an organization, but also creating a brand, a name for yourself. I asked you, we do a sound check, and I said, can you just tell us who you are? And I call myself the nonprofit sector connector. And in our business, Vanguard Benefits, I call myself the director of strategic alliances because I love those words, strategic alliances, relationships, connecting. You introduce yourself as, please tell us.
I am the Chief Visionary Officer of I Try.
Chief Visionary Officer, because that's about thinking into the future. That's about seeing where we're going, right? Looking out at the horizon. Where do we go from here? How do we get bigger? How do we grow? How do we impact more lives? That's what I heard when you said visionary. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just like you said, what you're visioning new things from this podcast and all of that's what it's all about, right? 100%. Seeing it, making it happen.
100%. And, look, we don't have to get all out there and manifest and things like that. But I did start my day listening to something by a guy I like to really plug into, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Really, really great. And thinking of yourself as a vision of the future, not as a memory of the past. And, if we could just get all that head trash, as my friend and coach Machen says, Machen McDonald, shout out to Mach, always supporting my work. But talk about getting rid of that head trash, man. And let's look into the future and see ourselves. I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, don't wish it was easier. Or was it Jim Rohn? It was Jim Rohn. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. So think about that. Elevate and just get better. All right. So Theresa, I always start the show with really trying to find out what drove the leader of this organization to found an organization, to go work in the nonprofit sector. What was the background? What's the backstory? Sort of like, I was never a big comic book guy, but I do know I have some friends who are gamers, listen to me on Twitch, which is a community I've not really tapped into or connected with. So I look forward to connecting with you on Twitch world. But I'm assuming a lot of those gamers talk about Genesis story and comic books, and certainly like all those comic books tell the story, the backstory. What is that backstory for you? Tell us that story.
I loved how you set that up, because then the way my visionary head works, of course, I saw a cover of a comic book with myself on it, right?
Yes. How cool is that? And we have people, shout out to the Spirit of Huntington. We have people that could do that and make a Theresa Roden comic book. We'll work that out. We'll talk about it. Tell us in this visionary, that perspective that you have. I remember one last thing. I remember there's The 21 Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires by Brian Tracy. I love all these old dogs, if you will, in that space, And he says, what you do is you project yourself 5 years in your mind's eye, and back from the future thinking. Not like one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future, but back from the future, not back to the future. So talk about that. What do you see? What was it that you saw?
Well, yeah, I'm just going to tell you the story, because it just flows so nicely into what you're talking about. So, people always ask me, how did this come about? And I always say, I was this girl. So growing up, I was never an athlete. I hated gym class with a passion, terrified me. I was last picked for every softball game, kickball game. And it was just, just a thing, even though I swam like a fish and I loved riding my bike. Running's never been my thing, but it comes with the package. So when I was in my 30s, my husband and I had become a teacher. That was my profession. I taught kindergarten and preschool. And then the same year that my daughter was born, my husband and I decided we were going to start a boating yachting magazine. We had a boat, and so we did that. So I stopped teaching. I did that full time as I was, being a kind of full-time mom. And we would go over to Block Island, Rhode Island, in the summer. So I was sitting there one day on the beach, probably eating a bag of chips, and out of nowhere, these crazy lunatics came running down the beach, and they've got numbers written on their arm in Sharpie, and they're running, and everybody's cheering, and they're jumping over sandcastles, and it was amazing. And I turned to my friend next to me and I said, "What is this?" He goes, "Oh, it's the Block Island Triathlon." I go, "What is that?" He explained it to me, right? You swim here in the ocean, then you ride around the island, which is, if you've ever been to Block Island.
I have been to Block, and I was only there once. It was like actually that COVID, it was like, I guess it was end of 20 or end of 21. I can't remember, with my family. And it's all hilly and stuff like that. Yeah. So ups and downs.
It's a challenge. And then you do this finish on the beach in front of all the kids and the families that are there. And something went off in my mind, and I said, I'm going to do that next year. Now that was crazy, because at that point, I had never even done a 5K. I'd never been in any kind of competition racing or anything like that. And I came home, and I belonged to a book club at that point with some, moms, and they were all like, really these crazy fit moms, and spin classes and yoga and all of this stuff. And I just mentioned it at our book club, and I said, "You guys are going to think I'm crazy, but next year I'm going to go over and do the Block Island Triathlon." And a couple of them said, "That's a great idea. Why don't we set that as a goal and do it together?" And then things like, I haven't done anything since the New York City Marathon. So we were, very much at all different levels in this. We literally signed up for this race, Googled how to do a triathlon, and got our membership cards at our local East Hampton Y, and literally dove into the deep end of the pool, swam one length, and we're so out of breath thinking, how are we ever going to do this?
So let me stop you, because I want to understand. I want to understand something. Let's kind of set it for people who who don't understand what the thing is. Like, we've established it's you're going to be on the bike, you're going to be putting your sneaks on, and you're going to be putting your trunks on or your bathing suit on, right?
You always swim first in a triathlon.
So give me that. So what is it? So, and give me kind of how much of each, how many of what I got to put in each one of these buckets to be done.
Exactly. So with triathlon, a lot of times you'll say, I did a triathlon or I'm a triathlete, and immediately people think Ironman,
Okay.
right? Kona and that whole thing.
Yes.
But really the sport has all different distances, from a super sprint, which is actually the race that we do with our kids now, to an Ironman. And everything along the way. So this particular race that I did in Block Island is a sprint, called a sprint. So that's one of the entry level races, although it's an incredibly hard sprint, just like we talked about. So it's an ocean swim. So actually they make you, and this is crazy that I did this, run, you do 100-yard dash on the sand. So you start off running hot in a wetsuit on the sand in August, then out through the waves, across and back in through the waves to come back out. So it's not a fair weather swim. It's tough. Then you run up the beach and you transition onto your bike, and you do 2 loops of the island, which is really, really tough.
Really? So what is the mileage or kilometers that you do?
So that race, the swim is a 1/4-mile ocean swim, and then a 12-mile bike. You do 2 6-mile loops.
Wow, that's big.
There's a famous hill on Block Island called Airport Hill. It literally is a 90-degree climb for about a 1/4 mile, and you do that twice.
Wow.
It's 2 loops.
Yeah.
And then the run is it's supposed to be a little over 3. It's pretty much 4 miles. It's all the whole Crescent Beach of Block Island.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. So for me, never being an athlete, never like preparing for something, it was setting that goal that started the ball rolling, sort of. So at the same time, you're going to love this. So at the same time that this was happening, that I've set this goal and was training, it was also the same time, I'm sure you know the movie The Secret, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So that movie had just come out. My best friend and I, we were really into it. We had made our vision boards. On my vision board, I had a picture of, this was the time I was going to finally get fit and active and all this. And there was a picture of somebody running on a beach. Unbeknownst to me, I put that on my vision board before this ever happened. And so as I was training for this triathlon, I was also using all of the things that I was learning at the same time, right? So from The Secret, of course, I learned, that our thoughts are so powerful, right? And the power of visualization. So I really, really embraced that. And so every day when I woke up, I was envisioning myself at doing this race or crossing the finish line. I was also I was reading Louise Hay. So if you know anything about
Louise Hay, of course. Yeah.
So, right, the mother of positive affirmations, and just that we can heal ourselves and we can create the life that we want. So me being a person who, as I know a lot of women and probably a lot of men, I grew up, my internal dialogue was so horrendous. I always say, I treated myself in a way that I would never let another human being treat me. And so that voice that had been with me my whole life, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are? You're too fat. You can't do this. I quickly realized there's no way I was going to make that finish line if that was how I was going to treat myself.
If that's the messaging, right? Like there's so much to that. That's why, Rhonda Byrne with The Secret. I mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza, Louise Hay, go back to like Tony Robbins. I talked Jim Rohn. I mean, like these are like the classics, and thoughts become things, right? Yes. Our outside world is a reflection of our internal. It's the dialogue that's going on inside. And yes, to your point, I'm pretty mean to Tommy D or to me. The Tommy D, the caricature, the whole thing, but I'm a big fan of his. But like to me, sometimes I'm not so sweet. And I think you and I are not alone in that regard, because we can be our own worst critic. However, what if we were the opposite? What if we were our own best cheerleader and our own best supporter?
Best friend.
Right? Best friend. And that little Theresa or that little Tommy D, to remind them that we care for them. And, some of this takes work, gang. Some of this takes work with a coach. Some of this takes work with a therapist. There is trauma. We're not going to get into this. I feel myself getting emotional. We're not going to do all that right now. But the deal is we got to do some work on ourselves. We got to get inside and we got to do that. And a lot of cases, it's the close your eyes, it's the meditation, and it's get off the grid and stop that external stuff so you can go inside and do the work. That's a whole nother show. But I think it's also related to what you and the organization does to empower these young women, these girls and young women, which we're going to get into. So I want 100%. You to, yeah.
So I'll just finish.
I want you to hold it. I want you to hold it.
Story. Oh, sure.
I want you to hold it because we're going to go to a break. And I know I want to kind of temper it because if we go, I want to get you started right when we come back. So the show is Philanthropy and Focus. The organization is I Try. And it's I Try Girls is really the full name, or I Try?
Yep, I Try Girls is the website. The org is called I Try.
Okay, itrygirls.org, itrigirls.org. We'll share it all over social media. Philanthropy and Focus, Theresa, Roden, Tommy D, right back.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on talkradio.nyc Fridays at noon Eastern and Intangify your business today.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
That song makes me laugh. I love listening to it. Sometimes, man, if you have a vision and you just want to do something, just do it. I mean, that song existed before the show existed. Talk about vision. How about this? I Try is an inclusive, immersive, community-based program that fosters self-respect, personal empowerment, self-confidence, positive body image, and healthy lifestyle choices for adolescent girls. I Try trains them to compete in youth distance triathlons as a metaphor for life's journey, giving them the opportunity to set seemingly air quotes, impossible goals and helping them gain the tools to achieve those goals. What sets I Try apart is our mind, body, and spirit approach. And I feel like we're certainly in the mind place and the spirit place. It's from where you and I have gone this morning already. So you were talking to me about this vision you have. You see these folks running around Block Island. What the heck is that? You go, I'm going to do that without even understanding what you said you were going to do. Been there, done that, and you said, I'm going to do it. And then take us from where we were. Like now you're in it. You're doing the training, the whole thing.
So I always talk about the moment, the definitive moment. It was, the end of the training. The race was coming up. And I was at the Y and I was on the treadmill and I just done a run on the treadmill, which is huge for me. And I was finished and I was still listening to music on my headphones and I turned it down to a very slow walk and closed my eyes for a cool down. And as I was doing that, I was visualizing the entire race in my mind. from the waking up that morning to setting up my transition area, to how it was going to feel to be in the water and the hearing the crowds and getting on my bike and literally knowing every twist and turn of that bike ride, and then doing that run and seeing myself jumping over those sandcastles. And I literally saw myself headed towards the finish line. And you know those pictures, like when the overweight person has lost weight and they go through the picture and it blows up. That's what I saw, right? And like into a million pieces. And as I saw that, literally anybody who was there that day would have been like, this, I don't know if she's okay. Like tears were, I couldn't control it. Tears just were streaming down my face. And it was so real, Tommy. It was, you know, when you have that moment. And I knew without a doubt it was done, right?
You
right?
were,
Like,
you were,
it's like Harry Potter. Like, I saw it.
You didn't only see yourself crying, you literally were crying in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, I knew without a doubt, because I had gone there in my mind, I would go there in my body. And after that, I just let it go. I knew I wasn't worried. I wasn't, and race day came, and I tell the girls now, I tell everybody who does this, that there will come a moment, if you do this, right? If you practice and you do this, there will come a moment that matches with your vision so clearly that you know this. So on the bike, there was just this moment, and I literally said, oh my gosh, it's real, it's happening. This is exactly the same feeling.
I got chills. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening, watching, get chills from that, because this is real stuff. Like, elite athletes can change again, this is not clinical, but I just know from people I've talked to, elite athletes, their body can change and feel the experience, because the body doesn't know if when the mind visualizes this stuff, the body doesn't know if it's really happening, if you're really on that bike, or if you're so intensely focused on that vision. And that's a lot goes to, and I'm a big Dr. Joe Dispenza fan. I hope one day I will actually meet and run into him. But I say that because, we talk a lot, or I listen to a lot of his stuff, and it's about being, if we live in this place of stress and our body ends up getting sick because we're in this constant place of stress and our thoughts have made us sick, well, then on the opposite side of that, our thoughts can make us well. And there's that, right?
Yeah. Dis-ease, right? It's about dis-ease. Yeah. And everything you're saying. So, we now teach our participants all of this, the power of visualization. When I started this was all woo-woo, right? Oh, your thoughts and all. Now there's science to back it up. So what you were saying, Olympic athletes, we show a video, and there's a study that they've done where they put sensors on the muscles of elite athletes, right? Or, like a downhill skier, and say, imagine that you're doing your run, and they do, and the same muscles that fire as they do it in real life are firing as they're just doing it in their mind. This is how they train astronauts. This is anybody who's ever had a huge dream or goal. This is how you get there.
Yeah.
You see it, you feel it, you taste it, you touch it, you use all of your senses. And it's just magic.
I just want you all to listen to what Theresa's saying there. This is not, two hippies talking about, well, no, we might be a couple hippies, but it isn't just about two hippies and tree huggers saying, hey man, you just got to visualize. No, this is science now, right? This is quantum stuff. This is, go into going through your meditative state, connect with the universal consciousness, get what you need. It's all there. We only, in my opinion, see the stuff we see because that's what we're asking to see. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I don't understand most of it, almost all of it. But I want to be the person, that type of person who plugs into it and gets access to that type of stuff. And let me tell you, it's only every day that you got to fight the battle. Only every day.
Every minute.
Right? Only every minute. Wait, hold on. Let's start now. Right? That's what it is. A lot of resetting, a lot of recalibrating. But God, take the blinders off. It's funny because the irony to me is take the blinders off by closing your eyes. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of this that we see, kind of like the fake stuff. Anyway, we might get too far out there for some people, but this is what this show is about. It's about opening up minds, and it's about making connections. So on the network here, actually the executive producer and the owner of talkradio.nyc, Sam Leibowitz, has a show called the Conscious Consultant Hour. So a lot of our folks on this network vibe on this kind of frequency that we're talking about. Anyway, I want to get into So you do the race, you're successful, you complete it, obviously. What did that feel like? I mean, for you?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was an amazing moment. I have, a great picture of crossing the finish line and a beating a guy behind me. It was like, just everything I wanted it to be. And my daughter at the time was about 6 years old. And I have a great picture of her holding up a sign that says, "Go Mom," and the whole thing. And it was it was great. And so after that, I went on to, discover that on the end of Long Island, where I live in East Hampton, there are so many great triathlons. And so I went on to start, racing a lot, and did all the races out here. I built myself up to being able to do an Olympic distance race, which was incredible for me. And every race that I went to, my daughter went to see me. And it just was, she got to grow up with the new and improved me, right? Instead of the one who, I always think, like, what if I hadn't had this transformation?
What if that person, that's what I was thinking as you were telling the story. What if that person doesn't almost trip over you, my words, at the beach that day while you're there? You said eating a bag of chips, hanging out. Like, what is the little things that happen, right, in our lives that, the trajectory of our lives, if we don't go. So, September 21st of this year, I might have shared this with you when we were chatting yesterday. Will be 13 years I've not had a sip of alcohol in my body, right? That's a decision. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I didn't always treat it as such an accomplishment, but I bring it up, and I bring up my ADHD, and I bring up all these sort of quasi-personal things because I think they're inspirational to other people, and maybe they're, a guidance to other people. So had I not made that decision on that Tuesday night in 2010 not to have another sip, my life would have went in a different direction, right? Definitely would have went. I'm not saying better or worse. I know it would have been worse, but I'm just saying it would have been a different direction, right? Exactly. What if, not that your life would have maybe been worse, but it would have been different. So if you project yourself.
Well, you know what, Tommy, right? Inspired action. So you have, like, something hits you, and as people said to me, everybody has ideas, but not everybody follows through. So it's when the inspiration hits, what's the next step? And I was in this place where just do what feels good, and that will lead you to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that's really how all of this happened.
That's so awesome. So I want to know, we're going to we'll break again in a minute here, but really for me, how many girls has this organization impacted since it started?
Close to, I think we're at 1,300 now, or maybe even 1,350.
Man, oh man, what is the ripple effect in those young women's lives? I mean, God, that's 1,300 stories, but I'd argue with you, Tommy D. Okay, Tommy D, argue with me. I'd argue with you that it's not 1,300 lives, because how many lives have those 1,300 lives affected by being a different person, by being inspired for action, by changing their own trajectory of their lives? Maybe their parents' lives are affected by that. Maybe their siblings' lives are affected. So think about that. And that, to me, it is not a finite number. That is infinite. That goes on forever, because once one individual changes, that changes everybody that's interacted with that person, right, Theresa?
And we've seen that in their schools and their families and our community. It's a huge ripple effect.
I love the ripple effect. I mean, I got chills right now. Because that's the stuff. So, like, here's what my show is, man. If that's what this is, if this is some kind of ripple effect, and people who were not familiar with your organization or were not familiar with Fans for the Cure last week, it is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. I'm going to be running around having a baseball catch. Steve Garvey, famous major leaguer, was on the show from baseball, was on the show last week. If not for us meeting people and connecting with people and developing the relationships and the connections, well, then things don't happen. Inspired action. I wrote it down. I'm going to circle it 3 more times. That is critical. We are going to take a quick break, because that's what we're inspired to do. We got to take a quick break real quick. When we come back, I want to get into the nuts and bolts, what this looks like for these girls and these young women, and the stories, what it's all about. Let's do it. We'll be right back. Theresa and Tommy in the attic.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show. which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Phocus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
When I was a little kid, when I was a little Tommy D, we went to Disney World, and I brought this up a couple times on this show before. My sister was just born, so it's just going back. I don't want to age her, but I'll just say it was like 38 years ago. So we went there, and there was like a thing. It was like Mickey's 60th birthday, and it was like a 60th birthday. Mickey's birthday. It's Mickey's birthday. I can't believe I remember that song, but it was another thing there. And this little creature, I don't even know if he exists anymore. I got to Google him, but it's called Figment. And he was a little guy, and it was a figment of your imagination. And that was like the shtick. It was a figment of your imagination. Well, Philanthropy and Phocus as a radio show podcast was a figment of my imagination. But I had the inspired action, although it took 2 years. Okay, I did it. And I'm encouraging you. This is not, hey, great job, Tommy D. This is there something, this burning desire that's driving you bananas that you feel like you need to do? Well, then do yourself a favor, do Theresa and I a favor, just freaking do it. And
But anyway,
right, just do it, get scared, get uncomfortable, get out there, get loose, figure it out. It's probably not going to work perfectly. In fact, I don't want to guarantee things, but it's probably not going to work perfectly. So what? Figure it out, man. Let's do something, change the freaking world. That's it. Let's get back into this story. Talk about changing the world. The organization is I Try. Founder, Chief Visionary Officer, my friend Theresa Roden. We actually met at Malloy University. You know, it used to be called Malloy College. I've been corrected. Malloy out here in Long Island is now a university. In fact, my alma mater, SUNY Old Westbury, was college at Old Westbury, but now I understand it's considered a university as well, part of the university system, SUNY. So that's cool. Shout out to Old Westbury. Shout out to Malloy. But it was a program where, again, nothing happens by accident. You and I met. It was a panel discussion for nonprofit organizations. Since then, an organization we founded, the Nonprofit Resource Hub, has created an alliance with that Malloy, Mother Cabrini grant, the whole situation for nonprofits. So a lot of things happening, but we were in the same room together, and we haven't spoken in months. You sent me a note on LinkedIn. Hey, I want to come on the show. I said, thought you'd never ask. And that's how we're here right now. So we got to ask what we want, but changing the world, that's what we're all about. So let's get into it. So you're now a triathlete. You are now a big time athlete, and you see this opportunity to say what?
well, to say, wow, if I could have learned all of this at an early age, what a difference it would have made in my life. So as my daughter was just about to go into middle school, you know, I was reflecting on what a tough time of life that was for me personally. And, you know, pretty much, I don't care who you are, middle school is really hard.
It was at middle school, back to school night last night. So I got 2 middle schoolers, 1 high schooler, and 1 in the 3rd grade still. So, you know, my younger daughter just went into the middle school, and it's a lot. it's a lot in general. I think girls might be more difficult.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about girls, I think, it's organization, let's focus on that. But it's tough, man. Who's mean to me? Am I understanding what the communication is? It's tough. Now I'm not in one classroom all day. I'm bouncing around every 45 minutes to another room, like different stuff.
Throw hormones and social media in the mix,
Yeah.
and it's a disaster. It is the hardest thing. I don't know. I don't know. So that's, that's where the idea came from, right? What if we took a group of girls in middle school, and this time of life that is so transformative, right? Puberty's going on, there's socialization, you're trying to figure out how you fit, and relationships and all that stuff. So what if we gave them a really big goal, something as big as doing a triathlon, and then gave them all of the tools, the training, the transportation, the love, the support, the camaraderie, everything they needed to be successful. So that was sort of the overarching. It literally, Tommy, came to me on a run one day as I was running. The whole thing again came to me as a vision, sort of like a documentary, right? To follow the idea was to do a documentary of this process. So it was interesting because at the time I was working for an organization out here called the Wellness Foundation. And I was working with them on their school education program around food and nutrition. And I took the idea to them, to the founder of this organization. And I thought for sure he was going to be like, yes, this is such a great idea. And he said, you know what, let me think about it. And then he came back and he said, no, I don't think we're going to do it. And so I kind of was like, oh. Meanwhile, I had talked to the social worker at my daughter's school, and I had told her the idea too. And she's like, I love it. I love it. So when I was told no, I let it go, right? What does Joe say? I just let it go. Following September, I walked into the school with my daughter going into 6th grade, and I happened to literally bump into that social worker. And she said, whatever happened with that triathlon idea? And I go, you know what? I think we should just do it. What do you think? And she goes, yes. Well, by the end of that week, we had a meeting with the principal. He loved the idea. Brought in the gym teacher and somebody else, and we had a meeting. They loved the idea, and we literally did it anyway. It was myself and Sharon McCobb, who's still to this day our athletic director. She had been already training kids on the East End for triathlon, and I brought her the idea, and she loved it.
Was she the woman that I met with you at Malloy then?
No, that wasn't Sharon. But so I went to the library. We have this great library in East Hampton, little cubby hole, and within I think like 4 days, I had just written. I always, you'll relate. It sort of was a download. I just wrote the curriculum, what we now call our empowerment curriculum, in 3 days, right? It was done. And many of those lessons, especially the core lesson that hopefully I'll have time to talk to you about, are still, we're 14 years down the line. We're still using those same lessons. That it was sort of it was meant to be sort of situation.
Love it.
So that first year, we recruited 10 girls. We ended up with a group of 10 girls from spring school. And I said to them, I don't know what this is going to be. You guys are going to help me create this. We did actually have somebody filming a lot of it. Yeah. Where that film is now, it's a mystery, but I always say it'll show up when the time is right. and so my favorite story from that year is that we had, I didn't know. I never, let's just put it out there. I never set out to found a nonprofit. I just had this driving, right? This inspired action that I knew I had to do. And so it was getting to be the time where we were going to start training them on bikes, and none of them had bikes. We had no bikes. So on Facebook, I was filling people in on this journey all along. And finally I said, all right, we're getting on bikes. We need bikes. So the week leading up to it, a million people were like, I have a bike for you, Theresa, come. So I was driving and picking up bikes and helmets, and we get to the day we're going to do bikes, and they're all on the bike rack, and I'm exhausted from running around. And Sharon comes and she goes, do we have enough bikes? And I go, I have no idea. And as the girls come out, we had exactly the number of bikes we needed, exactly the number of helmets, Tommy, loaves and fishes, right?
Yeah, loaves and fishes, right?
It was loaves and fishes. I knew that this was what was supposed to happen. And then from that, like we had no money, and you shared some personal things. So in our personal life, my husband and I, we had a magazine, right? If you know anything about magazines, it's not the best time for print and advertising, and it's very, whatever. So financially, we weren't in a good place. This was not a good time for me to start being a volunteer, right? But he supported me. And my theme that whole year, Tommy, there's a great song called Do It Anyway. And that was just my theme, do it anyway. So there were all of these little signs along the way that I was doing the right thing, right? So I would do something, and then the next opportunity would arise. So we got one donation that year, and it was for about $1,000, and we used that to create uniforms. A friend designed them. We had them done. They're the same exact uniforms, the kits they're called, that we use today, and on them had our symbol, the lotus, right? Because the lotus out of the muck and mud is transformation, and that's really what it was all about.
Wow. Gosh, so many things. Empowerment curriculum. Well, I want to just get all heady and stuff like that, but I want to make sure we get on.
That's the basis, right? Yeah. So yeah, they're training for a race, but that's really not the point. The point is so much bigger than that. So that they can learn all of these things to get them to that finish line, but it's what happens after the finish line that matters, right? The finish line is just the beginning. So all of those things that I used myself to get to that finish line, it was put into that, what was called our self-esteem curriculum, because we knew, right, if you cannot love yourself, then how do you expect to be loved? And really, at the end of the day, that's what this is about, discovering that you are worthy, that you are lovable. And once you can learn that and have all of these tools, sky's the limit, right? So our first lesson, tell me if we have enough time.
We're good. Let's do it.
Okay. So this is it, right? So our first lesson is called How Bright Is Your Light? And it's been our first lesson since day one. So now we're hopefully 14 different schools on the east end of Long Island. Every I Try girl will get this lesson on the first day. Our program leaders bring in a lantern.
How many schools? Just go back one thing. How many?
We're in 13 right now, and we're possibly expanding to one more this year. So I'm
going to share my screen for folks who are watching on streaming and stuff like that. If you're just listening, go to itrigirls.org, itrigirls.org. But keep it up, Theresa. I'm going to show the screen while we're doing that.
Excellent. So yeah, so the first lesson is called How Bright Is Your Light? And these girls' lights are pretty bright. So it starts off when we tell them that all of us are in this world, and when we choose to come into this world, we are this beautiful ball of light, right? And at the end of the day, we are just energy, we are just light. And our job, our one job, is to feel as good as possible, because when you feel good, your light is bright. And when your light is bright, every single person that you come in contact with benefits from that, right? It's the energy. We always talk about, like, you go into a room where if somebody has negative energy, you feel it immediately, right? So the opposite is true. When you walk into a room where somebody is feeling so good and they're so bright, you want to be with them, you want to help them, you want to, be part of that.
Theresa, we came from stardust, man. What are we talking about, right?
Right. So imagine you're 11 years old. You don't know that. Nobody's taught you that.
Right,
and this is how it happens, right? So then we go around the room and we use the lantern and we say, what are some things that happen that make your light dim? And they'll come up and actually move the dimmer on the lantern, and they'll say things like, when I get a bad grade, or when I have a fight with my friend, or and then sometimes they share some really tough stuff, right? My grandma died, or things like that. And it just brings up conversation. And in those empowerment sessions in general, it's where we build trust and where we build community and support and really social emotional learning, which anybody in this moment, we know we're dealing with an adolescent mental health crisis. And so these are those things. So along with that, so that vision of the light goes throughout the whole season, right? It's all about feeling good so that you can have that ripple effect in the world. And I Try is about feeling good no matter what. So there may come now, so we do those lessons during the week. We push in after school, and we do that at each school. We do an hour of the empowerment sessions followed by an hour of fitness.
I just want to ask you a question. So you say, so is it, it's like an after school club that they can join?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we work in partnership with the schools, but we are an independent program. So once the kids sign up with us, we take over all of the logistics and all of that. And on Saturdays, they come together, we mix the schools, and that's where they do their triathlon training. We're so big now, we have 2 hubs. We have East Hampton Y for our girls from Southampton to Montauk meet on Saturdays, and they do running and swimming there at the Y. Our Western girls, now we are as far as the William Floyd School District, so Mastic Shirley and Riverhead, they in West Hampton and Hampton Bays all go.
We gotta work, man. We gotta come out here, man. We gotta get out to Nassau County a little bit, man. We got some projects to do. We'll talk.
I know. Well, that's part of the bigger vision, right, Tommy? So they train at the Suffolk County Community College. So we're doing all these trainings, and then as the weather gets better, we transition to biking. Biking is really interesting, right? So we always have girls who come to us not knowing how to ride a bike. That number has grown over the years for many reasons, especially post-COVID. Bikes were so expensive and all of that. But really the fear factor, parents are fearful, so they're not really educating their kids. And so that's a huge talk about an accomplishment. So we have so many who sign up and they're like, I can't do it because I can't ride a bike. And we're like, no, you're who we want, because we're masters now. We are experts in teaching you how to ride a bike. And the best part is the girl who couldn't ride this year will come back next year because she can't wait to help the next girl.
Oh my God. Moment. I love it. I love it. Now the empowering, and there's a ripple effect. Like when it comes down to it, it's like these little wins, right?
Yes.
Finishing this thing, forget about it. It cannot be considered a little win, right? I mean, but huge freaking win. But all of these little wins throughout this process, God, my friend Renee Daniel Flagler is the executive director of Girls Inc. of Long Island. I don't know if you know Renee.
I do. Sure.
Love her. She's a buddy of mine. My friends out at Girl Scouts of Suffolk County, Tammy Severino and Enriqueta White. I'm going to be out at Girl Scouts scooping Italian ices on Wednesday next week. It's like, this is it, man. This is what we're supposed to be doing, is empowering not only these young women, these young men too. We have to do this. We're going to empower each other as adult people too in this journey of growth, right?
And it's such an important word, right? And I think it gets used, and in different ways. But what I say to the girls is, I ask them what they think it means. And at the end of the day, what it means is we are giving you the power. We are empowering you. We're giving you the power to make your own decisions, to use your voice, to push yourself past fear. People ask me all the time, right? You mentioned, there's a similar program, Girls on the Run, right? Where they do, self-esteem building, and it ends in a 5K. And I'm all for it. Anything that gets, builds those two together is, we know when you're doing a fitness activity, right? It raises your energy, raises your vibration, your all those good things, right? But what makes us different, people ask me all the time, what makes us different? It's fear, right? It is huge. As you said at the beginning, I don't think I could do that swim. Yeah. Well, there's nothing scarier than a triathlon swim. Imagine getting in the water with 100 other people, all kicking and splashing around you. We've had Ironman professional triathletes on our board, and I always ask, was there ever a swim where you weren't scared? Every one of them says, no way. I was every single one, right? So every girl that morning, no matter what, she's done all that I've asked her to do. She's visualized this every single day for 6 months. She's used her affirmations. I can do it. She's power posed, and she pretends she's Wonder Woman, right? The Cuddy, all of that. We teach them all of that. So we do all of that morning, right? The other thing we do, and this is from another lesson, is we put our hand on our heart. And do this with me, Tommy. Everybody listen, just do this for 1 second and just think about your own name. Put your hand on your heart. I love you. I love you. Say your name. I love you. I love you. Okay, open your eyes. And what that does is that makes your energy just go through the roof, and it calms your nervous system down. And so right before they walk down the beach to get into the water, that's what we're doing. This huge circle of 150, 200 girls doing that together. You could hear a pin drop. It's so powerful because what they have to do next is something that is so scary. And every single one of them has the moment that every triathlete has. I can't do it. I can't do it. And they have to think, well, I can give up and I can quit, but that means everything I worked so hard for is gone. So they push through. And what's on the other side of fear is triumph, is this feeling. So they come out, they do it. Somehow they do it. They come out of the water. Now they got to get on a bike with cars and, again, face real fear. And then they come back and then they start running.
We gotta do this. We gotta take a quick one. We gotta take a quick break. We're gonna because here's what I want to finish this with: what's upcoming, how we can help, all that stuff. I will tell you this: literally, when I put my hand over my heart, I felt the state change. Shout out to Anthony Tony Robbins, who get in state. Like because we're vibing, you and I chatting about a lot of the same people. So I feel. Let's Logan, take us to a quick one. Give me a quick break, like a half a break if you can. We'll be right back. Philanthropy and Focus.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies, from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on talkradio.nyc, Fridays at noon Eastern, and Intangify your business today.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
I ever thought on a basic level that this program was just about telling you about nonprofits, which is an incredible show anyhow, but if it was just about that and only on that one level, only on that one frequency, well, that ain't enough, man. And we've proven that today because we're vibing on a whole different frequency. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. That's Margaret Mead. And then there's this one. No big deal. Just changing the world. That's by your boy, Tommy D. I made that one up. No big deal. Just changing the world, because it is a big deal. That's the cute wink. I'm winking at the universe. It is a big deal. We are changing the world. And that's what we're doing today with Theresa. Theresa, let's bring it home a little bit. I know there's more steps to the empowerment curriculum. We're going to have to come back. Actually, in that new show I've sort of talked about, the on location thing that I kind of mentioned up at the front of the show. We'll talk about that, but we can do more and in depth, and we'll have hours to talk about this stuff. So let's bring it home a little bit. If somebody needs to connect with the organization, who are they? Or rather, how do they connect with the organization if their daughter or their school wants to get involved? And then we'll talk about upcoming events and what do you need?
Excellent. Great question. So right now we are in a period as an organization where we're looking at how to best scale this, right? I think we're pretty close to max out on the East End. So we're looking at ways to expand, further west on Long Island, but also with an eye to what the original, back to the vision, right? The original vision that after we did that first year, the girls who did it came back to me and said, listen, we don't want this to be over. This isn't a one and done. We want to build this so that any girl anywhere who can benefit from this has that opportunity. So that's been my driving vision all these years. And we were set back a little bit with COVID, but as an organization, we are just ready to really put a plan in place that makes that dream a reality. We're always looking for volunteers to help out at our events or trainings, things like that. And then, of course, as every nonprofit, we everything we do for our kids is completely free. So, we purchase the bikes, we provide transportation and everything they need, and we pay our staff. I think that's a really important piece of this.
How good staff is it that you have?
So we have 5 full-time program staff, and then we have a new CEO, myself, and some administrative people, all working to make sure that every single girl is successful on race day.
Tight budget, right? With a lot of reach, a lot of
moving pieces. Yes,
right? We're often wearing more than one hat in the space. What about? I know you have an event coming up on the 30th. I want to make sure you talk about it and anything else that's coming up that we should know about.
Yep. So I encourage anybody who's likes wine or likes riding bikes or likes lunch in a beautiful setting to come out and to Bridgehampton on September 30th. We are doing our 6th annual Ride and Wine event. So you have a choice of riding 30 miles or 10 miles. I actually do the 10 miles. So it's fun and slow and flat, and anybody can do it. And we can even get you a bike if you need to. And then we do a luncheon afterwards, and it's a fundraiser for iTry. It leads us into our giving season, which is on October 26th. We do an all-day give-a-thon. We call it Giving Day, and it's a throwback to Jerry Lewis. And we bring on different people and community members and supporters, and our girls take part in it. And we set out to raise a huge amount of money. Our board works really hard to crowdsource their friends and families, and it's just an amazing day.
Is that a day where is there like a Facebook Live? Is there something because maybe what we should do, I'm offering myself as this opportunity. Like if you wanted me to jump on a stream with you and just kind of help promote that on that day, I'd be happy to do that.
Tommy, that would be amazing. Yes, the whole thing is live streamed all day long. Right now, you can go to our website, itrygirls.org. You can go to the Giving Day page, and I think there's some video clips from it. It's just a really, really fun day.
We'll talk about this because we are out of time, but we'll talk. I mean, my dad owns Ralph's Italian Ices out in Huntington. Shout out to my dad, the original Tommy D, out right next to the Paramount Theater in Huntington. So if you're out there, stop by. But he helps me out a lot in donating Italian Ices. So if it's appropriate for that day or some other day with the girls, let me know. We'll make that happen. All right.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being connected to this world that I just, this is it, man. It's at Willy Wonka, whatever happened to the little boy who got everything he wanted? Well, he lived happily ever after. I'm sort of feeling that right now. Thank you, Theresa. Thank you for some of my friends checking in. Mick Collins, Robert Rosner. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for being part of my world. Theresa, I appreciate you. I look forward to catching up soon in person.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Make it a great day. Logan, great job on the technical side. See you guys later next week. Bye.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.